Hi, I'm Ashton, and this is just one of those videos where I made myself a coffee. I woke up like an hour ago, and we're just gonna chat about something. So something that is a big part of my mental health, learning to recover from things, and something that I haven't talked about a lot is self-harm. But of course, before I get into it, a trigger warning. I will be talking about cutting in this video. I'm not going to get into detail or any gory descriptions. I'm going to be talking about recovery and the things that I've learned and the lessons that I've taken from it. But still, I wanted to give you a heads up in case you are struggling with self-harm. You know your own limits. Watch this video if you think you can handle it, but if you need to take care of yourself, don't feel bad for skipping out on this one. And also, I just want to say that, this is my experience in recovery. Not everybody is going to agree with all of these things or feel the same way that I do, but this is just what I've been through and a few things that I've learned for myself and things that I wanted to share. So there are a few things that I just wanted to talk about, and this video is probably going to be kind of jumpy and all over the place. So for any of you that don't know, from 6th grade to 9th grade I had a big problem with self-harm, and it's not something that I talk about a lot because a lot of the times I don't know how to talk about it, but it is something that I still do deal with, just because my scars are visible and I don't wear long sleeves all the time, so people do point it out, and I still have those awkward conversations pretty often. So, regardless of how long it's been and how well I'm doing now, I still do have to deal with what I've been through, and I probably will forever because at this point my scars aren't going to go away. But it's something that I've learned, to deal with and to be okay with. A lot of people that struggle with self-harm will count, I'm 6 months clean, I'm a year clean, but for me, counting was counterproductive. I have OCD, and for me, numbers are a trigger for my OCD, and keeping track of how long I hadn't cut was very, not good for me. So, I tried keeping track a few times, but I haven't in a long time, and that's been better for me. So there are a few lessons that I've learned about, recovery and breaking an addiction. For any of you that haven't struggled with self-harm is very addictive, and I struggled with that for years, right? And I think it's kind of important to say that where I am now, I haven't cut in a long, long time. And I do feel, for the most part, that I have recovered and that I don't feel that desire anymore. But as addictions go, it's something that I still crave sometimes. It's, a lot of people make fun of trigger warnings, but for me, without a trigger warning, something will legitimately send me back into, oh my god, I need this. I crave this, And I feel like a misconception about trigger warnings is how, they're sensitive and people just use them to avoid sensitive topics. But for me, if I have a warning, then I can see something. If I have a warning and I'm prepared to see, somebody talking about self-harm or see pictures of scars, then I can handle it and I'm okay with it. But if there's not a trigger warning and I'm not ready and I haven't, calmed myself enough to see that sort of thing, that's when I'm actually triggered into thinking about relapse. So I'm not ashamed to say that, hey, yes, I need trigger warnings. Please don't talk about that stuff without warning me, because I can handle it if I'm warned. But if I'm not, then I'm taken off guard, and it's something that genuinely can impact me. And that is very likely different for a lot of different people. But for me, that's how trigger warnings help me, to prepare me to see something that I can handle, but only if I know that I'm about to see it, So when I was first, trying to recover and trying to break the cycle of self-harm, one of the things that I kind of thought that didn't end up being right, I thought recovery was very black and white, but I've definitely learned and experienced that it's not. Just because you relapse doesn't mean that you have to start recovery all over. Everybody relapses, and relapse is okay, and it's alright to talk about. And I've done a video before on how recovery and relapse aren't two separate issues. That was a while ago, a long time ago now. I haven't relapsed in a long time, but if I were to, I wouldn't consider my recovery ruined. I wouldn't consider it over, and I wouldn't see myself as having to restart everything. Nobody can flip a switch in their mind and suddenly not be addicted to something or suddenly not crave self-harm anymore. It just doesn't work that way. And for me, learning that really, really helped, because You know, when you spend so long focusing on, I'm not going to self-harm, I'm not going to self-harm, and you relapse, it can feel so, like, terrible. It can feel really, really shitty. Of course, relapse isn't good, but it's not something to be ashamed of. And it is something that happens, and it's something that you can work through. And I feel like that's been a much healthier mindset for me to have, that, like, relapse can happen, and relapse is okay, and of course, it isn't healthy and it's not good, but as long as you recognize that and you move on and you take care of yourself and you do your best to make sure it doesn't happen again, then it's okay. You don't have to beat yourself up for slipping up once. Recognizing how far you've come can really, really help. Like for me, I used to self-harm at least once a day, sometimes multiple times every day, and a lot of times I'll feel guilty when I even think about self-harming now. But if I think about how I used to be and how far I've come, that can really help as well. Sometimes it feels like I'll never be recovered until, like, I'm fully fucking recovered, and you can't tell that I ever self-harmed in my life, but realistically, I know that I'll never be there, and I know that that's okay. Like, I have scars, and that's something that at this point I just have to accept and move on with, you know? My struggle with self-harm is something that will impact me for the rest of my life, because it is so visible, and you know, it's something that I went through, and it's something that I refuse to be ashamed of anymore. But in the end, I'm proud. I'm not proud that it's something that I did, but I'm proud of how hard I've worked to recover and how hard I've worked to get back on the right track and to now very, very rarely feel the compulsion to cut anymore. I've come a long way, and recognizing that just makes me feel stronger. And I feel like that's something that everybody has to learn at some point, that the progress is what's important. How far you've come in recovery is what is important and what's valuable. It's not the end goal. It's not the idea that someday you might never think about it again, because that might not be realistic, and that's okay. And another thing that I've learned is, like, you can never have too many coping mechanisms. And I know sometimes when you're with a therapist and they're like, oh, do you have this coping mechanism? Do you do this to cope? It can feel ridiculous, and it can feel like, I will never need this much. But in the moment, when you feel so down and you feel like you're about to relapse, any coping mechanism that you can think of is going to help. When you're in that state of mind and you're thinking about self-harming again, your first thought isn't, oh, I could do this, like list off this dozens of things coping sheet that your therapist gave you. But if you can think of just one of those things, then it can help. And that's something that took me a long time to learn. You need this arsenal of coping mechanisms so that in the moment you can at least think of one, and you can at least go one other way, and one thing can help you, because sometimes that's all you need. Something else that I've learned, and I'm glad that I've learned, is that it's healthy to feel emotion. When I self-harmed, a lot of my motivation to hurt myself was to feel something or to block out feelings, because when I felt too much, I would want to cut to give myself a feeling that I could control, because I was used to the pain and I liked that and I craved that feeling of control. So something that I've definitely learned and definitely taken to heart is the idea that it is okay to feel emotion, and it's okay to not control that. And that's something that I've struggled with for a long time, and part of it has to do with dysphoria, because for me that is a very, very strong thing that I do feel a lot. But allowing myself to feel things is something that's helped. Recognizing hey, I'm sad today, and that's okay. I'm allowed to be sad, and I'm allowed to be angry, and hell, I'm allowed to be happy. Realizing those things and internalizing that and letting myself have emotions has really helped. I don't have to control, and I can't control everything that I feel, and learning that and embracing that my emotions are just gonna come and go, that's okay. And that's something that took me a long time to learn, but it's something that really, really did help me. It is really important to talk to people about it, and it's important to have a friend that you can go to when you feel the need to cut, but if they also struggle with self-harm and you're just hurting each other in a terrible, vicious cycle, then it's not healthy. And you might be able to befriend them later. For me, I did not. My ex was very negative for me to be around. But it's okay to have friends that also struggle with self-harm. But talking to each other about it in ways that don't make either of you feel better, it's not going to help. I'm sorry. And that can be a really, really difficult lesson to learn. But in the end, it is worth it if you need to cut them out of your life for a little bit of time or forever. Talking to people about it is really important and healthy. But it's also really important to recognize when those conversations can become toxic and when they could be doing more harm than good for you and for the person that you're talking to. No matter what you might think about where you are or who you are, everybody has the ability to recover, and every single person that self-harms can recover, if you believe it or not. I promise you it can happen. You know, I used to think that there would never be a day in my life where I wouldn't self-harm, and here I am. I'm doing really, really well compared to back then, and that makes me really proud of myself. There are so many things that I've learned from recovery, and a lot of those things I can't even put into words. And I hope that some of you do understand where I'm coming from, and I hope that if you are struggling with self-harm, then you might be able to learn a little bit from this. It's just so important to know that you're not alone, and that no matter where you are, you can recover, and you have that potential, and things get better. And I know it's so fucking cheesy and so overdone, but genuinely, when you try to recover and you get yourself help, things will get better, and you will be okay, and everything will turn out all right. And I know it is extremely hard to believe that at times, but if I could do it, you can too. It's not by any means easy to talk about self-harm or easy to recover from, but talking about it can help, and knowing that you're not alone can help. And I hope that all of you are in a really healthy place in your life, and if you're not, just know that even if I'm not the best about talking about it, I do support you. Even if we've never talked before, you got this. I believe in you. You're doing amazing, and recovery is in your future, whether you believe it is or not. So those are just a few things that I've learned in recovery. Like I said, it is really hard to put a lot of these things into words, and that's okay too. But I hope somebody took something from this, and I hope you feel okay right now. So goodbye. I hope that your recovery is easier than you ever thought it would be, and closer than you thought it would be, and I will talk to you later, maybe.